Hello. Good evening. Like evening. But hello. How's it going? Um, y'all, I've just been getting through my days trying to reassure myself that the calmness, that everything's gonna be what it is, that you can walk through this with grace and, try not to feel the overwhelming rush of like when things are constantly moving or changing and when you're going from place to place. But it has definitely been one of those reassurances that like there will always be a reason to rush off head first and to feel like if you're going with the flow of the world, to feel the anxiety of getting to your next task. I don't want to live like that though. Like, I just want to be able to know that the task list will get done, and it is my responsibility to really stand firm and walk it with a graceful pace. There's no running when you're in grace. Like, there's no need for all of that, because you start to understand what is yours will be yours. What is like, I don't know. I don't want to constantly look at my to-do list, look at my schedule and the things, the projects that are calling and vying for my attention, and go, I gotta get there, I gotta get it done, I gotta da da da. I just want to know that there's an ease to it when I can get to the next thing, and I can walk in an assurance that no matter how I know, that I can walk in an assurance that I don't have to feel the pressure of the next thing while I'm in transition. I can just be in transition of like, okay, I'm going from one place to the next. Let me look around and like, let me enjoy that. And I think I prayed that prayer live, that I want to be at peace and reassured that as I'm going through and as I'm trying to be where I'm called to be, if I feel this overwhelm, remind me to slow down and look up. It worked. There were definitely moments where I was running more than I should have. And in each of those moments, I got a nice reminder that you can slow down and you can look up. And usually when I did that, there was a beautiful view waiting for me. So before we jump in, or that's all I wanted to say before we jump in. And yesterday I ended up reading a little bit more of our plan than I was supposed to. So I did jump beyond that point and read into Numbers 14, 1 through 26. I was thinking I'd just pick up from 26, but that don't sit right with me, so I'm gonna start from the beginning of Numbers 14 today, and then we're gonna go into we're gonna go into Numbers 16 and then Psalms 43. So let's get started. Okay. The people rebel. Then the whole community began weeping aloud, and they cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness, they complained. So these complaints are being cried out right after the scouts, the leaders, not leaders, but each representative from the 12 tribes, there were 12 scouts sent out. And when they sent out those scouts, it was go survey the land, survey the people, survey the forces, survey whether they have gates. If you can, bring back some produce. So these 12 people set out, and they see these walls, they see the cities, they see the giants there, and they come back and they report to Israel, and you have 10 of them who are like, we can't do this, we're surely gonna die, we can't overcome this. And you have Caleb who's like, nah, I think we got this. And then you have, I think it was Joshua or Hoshua. Those are the same people. Who is like, nah, we walk with the Lord. Don't you understand? We can do this. So this whole rebellion comes after the 10 that were set out and couldn't really see past the walls and the fortification of this land. Just throwing the rumors through the people and sowing this level of discourse. But that wasn't hard, because these aren't really a faithful people. So yeah. Why is the Lord taking us to this country only to have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to return to Egypt? Then they plotted amongst themselves, let's choose a new leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole community of Israel. 2 of the men who had explored the land, Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, the land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into the land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them. And for me, like, verses 9, no, that's all of verse 9. Verse 9, when it's like, don't rebel against the Lord. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Like, what is there? There's this facade that you're scared of. The walls, the giants. And you're letting that wall and the giants and your imagination and fear of what they'll do if they conquer you, what they'll do if you go into battle that you surely lose. They're playing this story up in their minds, and they're seeding this fear, and they're giving into it. But it's like, don't be afraid. They have no protection, but the Lord is with you. It's with us. But the whole community began to talk about stoning Joshua and Caleb. Then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tabernacle. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? They will never believe me, even after all the miraculous signs I have done among them. I will disown them and destroy them with a plague. Then I will make unto you a great nation. I will make unto you a nation greater and mightier than they are. Moses intercedes for the people. And then this is, again, like it's a mimic of what's going down on Mount Sinai, or what went down on Mount Sinai during the time of the calf. Because the Lord was done with them then. He was over it. He was like, listen, Moses, I'm going to wipe them out, and I'm going to make you a great nation. But Moses protested for the people, and he said, what will the Egyptians think when they hear about it? He asked the Lord. They know full well the power you displayed in rescuing your people from Egypt. Now, if you destroy them, the Egyptians will send a report into the inhabitants of this land, who have already heard that you live among your people. They know, Lord, that you have appeared to your people face to face, and that your pillar of cloud hovers over them. They know that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you slaughter all these people with a single blow, the nations that have heard of your fame will say, the Lord was not able to bring them into the land he swore to give them, so he killed them in the wilderness. Please, Lord, prove that your power is as great as you have claimed. For you said, the Lord is slow to anger and filled with unfailing love, forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion, but he does not excuse the guilty. He lays the sins of the parents upon the children. The entire family is affected, even children in the third and fourth generations. There's two things about this plea, and one of them is mainly like, God, don't do it for these people. Do it because you don't need anyone in these lands to be able to throw dirt on your name. You don't want to see the ability for them to go, oh, he was unable to do what he promised. And that's why God's like able to subside his anger. Like, there are multiple times in the Bible where he says, do this as a reminder to the Lord, and it will remind me of my covenant with you. And I think all those reminders are so that Lord is able to subside his anger when his people are being rebellious. This was a moment where there was no covenant ritual that could take place to subside, to help him ease his anger. There was no like sacrifice that could be given in this moment, but there was a reminder of his covenant promise through Moses. Through Moses' words. And then he doesn't excuse the guilty. He lays the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected. The entire family is affected. Even children in the third and fourth generations. So there are times where I'm sure as Christian you've probably heard the argument, if there was a God, even these innocent children, when they're born sick or when they're facing adversity, they were innocent. They had nothing to... Children don't deserve that. So that's why I believe there's no God. And that's a valid argument. If you're looking at it in terms of, this being was just created here. But if you're able to see a person the way God sees the person through a generational lineage, if you're able to understand that family and bloodline runs deeper than just the generations that are there when you're born, they run beyond that, up to the third or fourth generation. So a child that is born can be paying for the sins of their great grandparents. That could be the weight that they are carrying upon them. They could be carrying any level of those burdens. And it's not that you're stuck in those burdens as a permanence. Like, I know I came in and I've been carrying the weights of a burden. I'm not at the stage where my story is being told yet, but we'll get there. But that's a generational weight. To see yourself the way God sees you. He sees the blood of you, the generational lines of you. He knows who your parents were before you knew. He knows who your great parents were. He blesses you from generations. He's like, I will cover up to 1,000 generations. So when he's showing his sinful wrath and it's even to the third or fourth generations, that's nothing when you compare it to the thousands. I don't want to say it's nothing, but in the bigger scheme of comparing it to the thousands, That's why I can't forsake my God just because I see a child going through their heavy burdens in this one generation, going they were innocent. Yes, that's very well true. They probably were innocent, but family is a heavier burden than we understand. And until we understand the spiritual elements of what family is, we can't judge God as unloving. I can't keep letting people judge God as unloving just because they see the one generation and they're like, well, that's innocent. Explain the spiritual weight of family before you can understand, before you can truly declare someone innocent. You don't have the knowledge to do that. Numbers 14:19. In keeping your magnificent, unfailing love, please pardon the sins of this people, just as you have forgiven them ever since they left Egypt. Then the Lord said, I will pardon them as you have requested, but as surely as I live, and as surely as the earth is filled with the Lord's glory, not one of these people will enter that land. They have all seen my glorious presence and the miraculous signs I have performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, but again and again they have tested me by refusing to listen to my voice. They will never even see the land I swore to give their ancestors. None of those who have treated me with contempt will ever see it. But my servant Caleb has a different attitude than the others have. He has remained loyal to me, so I will bring him into the land he explored. His descendants will possess their full share of that land. Now turn around and don't go on toward the land where the Amalekites and Canaanites live. Tomorrow you must set out for the wilderness in the direction of the Red Sea. So this verse 2 and verse 25. Now turn around and don't go on toward the land where the Amalekites and Canaanites live. They get redirected in this sense. They were heading towards the promised land. The scouts were sent out before them so that they knew what they were facing when they got to the promised land. Their lack of faith redirected them. Their lack of faith kept them from the promise. There was a wall, yes, there were some obstacles, but they saw the obstacles and they lacked the faith to face those obstacles in the power of the Lord. And that's when they get redirected. So sometimes you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting. And it could be as simple, like, how am I going to overcome that? That's going to defeat me. I'm going to lose out to this obstacle. I don't have it. I don't have the power to defeat this. And that can redirect you. And they go back into the wilderness. And the other thing that's striking me is, like, you know those times where you keep asking God for the plan? And you're like, God, I need the plan. Like, what's next? Come, just tell me, and I can see. Like, I'll know where to go. Give me the plan. Here's an example of a whole group of people who had the plan, who had enough foresight and knowledge. Not foresight. Was it foresight? They had enough of that to be like, go scout this land is yours. I have promised it to you and to your ancestors and you. I'm with you to fulfill that promise. I'm standing amongst you. You see the signs. I'm displaying the signs and the wonders of my power. Do you see them? They were able to know what the plan was. They were able to have enough information to scout their blessing. They were able to see how powerful their Lord is, have the Lord amongst them, but they weren't spirit-filled enough to keep marching towards their blessing. It's like, I need to stop asking. Sometimes I'll just be wanting to know, like, Lord, what is the plan? Can you tell me? And other times I know I'm not strong enough to know that plan. Like, you see a plan that's overwhelming and you get bug-eyed, and for me it's procrastination that sets in. Like, nah, there's a freeze when you know too much or when you see too much of what needs to be done. It's overwhelming. And sometimes all you can think about the problems that can arise in this plan. God, maybe I'm not strong enough to know the plan. But don't give me the plan. Give me the faith to see the plan through. It's okay if I can't know anything. Give me the faith to see my steps sure-footed. Like, give me the faith I need to be able to scout my promise. Because Caleb, Joshua, they were walking in a different faith. They understood they were able to see everything. But no, like, nah, the Lord's with us. These people are nothing. These problems are nothing. And they were able to dismiss. Okay, so the Lord punishes the Israelites. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long must I put up with this wicked community and its complaints about me? Yes, I have heard the complaints the Israelites are making against me. Now tell them this, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I do to you the very things I heard you say. You will all drop dead in this wilderness because you complained against me. Every one of you who is 20 years old or older that was included in the registration will die. So this is included in the census. You will not enter and occupy the land I swore to give you. The only exceptions will be Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. Nun. You said your children would be carried off as plunder. Well, I will bring them safely into the land, and they will enjoy what you have despised. But as for you, you will drop dead in this wilderness, and your children will be like shepherds wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. In this way, they will pay for your faithlessness until the last of your lives until the last of you lies dead in the wilderness. Because your men explored the land for 40 days, you must wander in the wilderness for 40 years, a year for each day, suffering the consequences of your sins. Then you will discover what it is like to have me for an enemy. We all got that one friend that we're like, we look over and we're like, I'm glad you're on my side because I don't want to have to deal with you. I don't have to deal with you as an enemy. Ask yourself, do y'all really want to have to deal with the Lord as your enemy? And I've always heard this 40 days, this 40 years thing, but I didn't know that was a year for each of the 40 days it took to scout the land. And it was just like, oh, it's 40 years, blah, blah, blah. But for each day y'all took to survey the land, I'm giving you a year in the wilderness as consequence of your faithlessness. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will certainly do these things to every member of the community who has conspired against me. They will be destroyed here in this wilderness, and here they will die. The 10 men Moses had sent to explore the land, the ones who incited rebellion against the Lord with their bad report, were struck dead with a plague before the Lord. Of the 12 who had explored the land, only Joshua and Caleb remained alive. When Moses reported the Lord's words to all the Israelites, the people were filled with grief. Then they got up early the next morning and went to the top of the hill. They got up early the next morning and went to the top of the range of hills. Let's go, they said. We realize that we have sinned, but now we are ready to enter the land the Lord has promised us. But Moses said, why are you now disobeying the Lord's orders to return to the wilderness? It won't work. Do not go up into the land now. You will only be crushed by your enemies because the Lord is not with you. When you face the Amalekites and Canaanites in battle, you will be slaughtered. The Lord will abandon you because you have abandoned the Lord. But the people defiantly pushed ahead toward the hill country. Even though neither Moses nor the Ark of the Covenant nor the Ark of the Lord's covenant left the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in those hills came down and attacked them and chased them back as far as Hormah. You can't get up and be... The waiting is rough. The waiting, the wandering, the pondering, the wondering, when am I going to get my blessing? And here in this chapter, they show this strong defiance and faithlessness. They have more faithlessness, more strength of faithlessness than faith. They show this, they cry, they weep, they yell, they abandon all of the grace that the Lord has put on them. So much so that they're willing to stone their leaders who have gotten them this far, and anyone who speaks up to defend them, Caleb and Joshua. They're willing to stone them to death. And the second the Lord turns around and gives them a little thwack, like, no. This is what you get for your faithlessness. He's like, okay, because of your defiance, because of your contempt for me, you're going to wander these lands, and everything you said you wished would happen is going to happen. You wanted to die in the wilderness? Go ahead. Wander the wilderness and die. You said you were going to be, your children were going to be plundered, even though I was here. All of your complaints are going to come true. These are the words of your mouth. Like, God's not punishing them. God's not punishing them with creative punishments that he thought of, that he was like, you know what, it'll be good if these people, let's see, if they just wander around in the wilderness and die, if their children are carried off. These were the complaints that they themselves sold as the Lord was among them. Oh, this is what's going to happen to me. Oh, they spoke their punishment into existence instead of speaking their blessing into existence. And then when the prophecy, their self-fulfilling prophecy starts to come true, they're like, oh no, now we're ready. Now we're ready to be blessed. We don't want none of that. We're ready to be blessed now. And this whole time they're following a cloud, this pillar cloud, the cloud of fire. This whole time they're following the Ark of the Covenant. This whole time there was a command. This is how the camp of Israel moves. There was order given to them. So even in their, okay, we're ready to walk with the Lord right now, they're being defiant because they're dismissing all of the orders that was given to them beforehand. I watched a sermon once and it was about like cuff to the clock or something. Yeah, it was by Michael Todd. It was called Cuff to the Clock. And this is reminding me of that, because he said one of the things he said, he was like, some of y'all think y'all can follow God's orders on your own time. And this is what they're given. They think they can follow God's orders on their own time and in their own way. For them to walk off and leave the Ark of the Covenant behind, leave Moses and their leader behind. When you start doing it on your own, you start trying to acquire your blessing on your own, you're going to be attacked. And you're going to be pushed back. I don't know how far Horma is, but like, and y'all, you know when you're doing it on your own. Like there's a visual here, there's a visual representation of like, oh, we're going ahead without the Ark. We're going ahead without Moses. We're going ahead without our leaders. We're going ahead without our God. So they were afraid to go with God, but not afraid to leave him. And even that's just more rebellion. It's just more. Okay. Okay. It's okay. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. We're in Numbers 15. It's laws concerning offerings. Then the Lord told Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you finally settle in the land I am giving you, you will offer special gifts as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. These gifts may take the form of a burnt offering, a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, a voluntary offering, or an offering at any of your annual festivals. And they may be taken from your herds of cattle or your flocks of sheep and goats. When you present these offerings, you must also give the Lord a grain offering of 2 quarts or choice flour mixed, 2 quarts of choice flour mixed with 1 quart of olive oil. For each lamb offered as a burnt offering or a special sacrifice, you must also present 1 quart of wine as a liquid offering. If the sacrifice is a ram, give a grain offering to a grain offering of 4 quarts of choice flour mixed with 1/3 of a gallon of olive oil, and give 1/3 of a gallon of wine as a liquid offering. This will be a pleasing aroma to the Lord. When you present a young bull as a burnt offering, or as a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a peace offering to the Lord, you must also give a grain offering of 6 quarts of choice flour mixed with 2 quarts of olive oil, and give 2 quarts of wine as a liquid offering. This will be a special gift, pleasing aroma to the Lord. Each sacrifice of a bull, ram, lamb, or young goat should be prepared in this way. Follow these instructions with each offering you present. All of your native-born Israelites must follow these instructions when you offer a special gift as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. And if any foreigners visit you or live among you and want to present a special gift as a pleasing aroma to the Lord, they must follow these same procedures. Native-born Israelites and foreigners are equal before the Lord and are subject to the same decrees. This is a permanent law for you, to be observed from generation to generation. The same instructions and regulations will apply both to you and to the foreigners living among you. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you have arrived in the land where I am taking you, and you eat the crops that grow there, you must set some aside as a sacred offering to the Lord. Present a cake from the first of the flour you grind and set it aside as a sacred offering, as you do with the first grain from the threshing floor. Throughout the generations to come, you are to present a sacred offering to the Lord each year from the first of your ground flour. But suppose you unintentionally fail to carry out all these commands that the Lord has given you through Moses. And suppose your descendants in the future fail to do everything the Lord has commanded through Moses. If the mistake was made unintentionally, and the community was unaware of it, the whole community must present a young bull for a burnt offering as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. It must be offered along with its prescribed grain offering and liquid offering, and with one male goat for a sin offering. With it, the priest will purify the whole community of Israel, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. For it was an unintentional sin, and they have corrected it with their offerings to the Lord, the special gift and the sin offering. The whole community of Israel will be forgiven, including the foreigners living among you, for all the people were involved in the sin. If one individual commits an unintentional sin, the guilty person must bring a 1-year-old female goat for a sin offering. The priest will sacrifice it to purify the guilty person before the Lord, and that person will be forgiven. These same instructions apply both to native-born Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. But those who brazenly violate the Lord's will, whether native-born Israelites or foreigners, have blasphemed the Lord, and they must be cut off from the community. Since they have treated the Lord's word with contempt and deliberately disobeyed his command, they must be cut off and suffer the punishment of their guilt. I have to go back and compare. I don't have to. I desire to. I want to go back and compare the offering protocols and the moments that they show up. Because every time there's an offering protocol, it's usually after an act of disobedience or a major act of disobedience. To remind you that offerings aren't for the Lord. Because he said, like, even if there was a moment where he was like, if you continuously rebel against me, you will make offerings to me that should be a pleasing aroma, and I won't look towards it. So it doesn't matter. The offering is not about that. The offering is for the person. The offering is more for the person than it is for the Lord. Like, the Lord's not starved for your offerings. He wants to give you an outlet to relieve yourself of the guilt you are carrying for disobeying or sinning against your God. Give you an outlet to receive your God, to reach towards your God. But yeah, so this comes off this is Numbers 15. In 14, we just learned about major rebellion that goes throughout the whole community of Israel, and only a few people are spared of that. So then the next is like, here's some procedures for your offering. And then it's changed. There are more offerings added when you make a sin offering. You're adding now the liquid and grain offering as well. So the procedure is definitely changed. It's amplified. More offerings. Numbers 15:32. Penalty for breaking the Sabbath. One day While the people of Israel were in the wilderness, they discovered a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. The people who found him doing this took him before Moses, Aaron, and the rest of the community. They held him in custody because they did not know what to do with him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "The man must be put to death. The whole community must stone him outside the camp." So the whole community took the man outside the camp and stoned him to death, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. That was already a decree, right? That people who break Sabbath, they will be stoned to death. Tassels on clothing. Tassels? Tassels on clothing. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Throughout the generations to come, you must make tassels for the hems of your clothing and attach them with a blue cord." Throughout the generations to come, you must make tassels for the hems of your clothing and attach them with a blue cord. Then when you see the tassels, you will remember and obey all the commands of the Lord instead of following your own desires and defiling yourselves as you are prone to do. The tassels will help you remember that you must obey all my commands and be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt that I might be your God. I am the Lord your God. Such interesting phrasing. I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt so that I might be your God. I am the Lord your God. It almost feels like an audition. I brought you out of Egypt so that I might be your God, because I was already your God. But I need you to know that I'm your God. That's the vibes I'm getting. I need you to know. Because if I left you in Egypt, you would have picked up these idols as your God. And I didn't want you to pick up those idols because I'm your God. So I brought you out of Egypt so you're away from all that so that I might be your God. Yeah. Number 16. Korah's rebellion. One day, Korah, son of Izhar, a descendant of Kohath, son of Levi, conspired with Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, from the tribe of Reuben. They incited a rebellion against Moses, along with 250 other leaders of the community, all prominent men. They incited rebellion against Moses, along with 250 other leaders of the community, all prominent members of the assembly. They united against Moses and Aaron and said, "You have gone too far. The whole community of Israel has been set apart by the Lord, and he is with all of us. What right do you have to act as though you are greater than the rest of the Lord's people?" Then that's funny. These people are funny. When Moses heard what they were saying, he fell face down on the ground. Then he said to Kohath and his followers, "Tomorrow morning, the Lord will show us who belongs to him and who is holy. The Lord will only allow those whom he selects to enter his own presence. Kohath, you and all your followers must be prepared. Prepare your incense burners. Light fires in them tomorrow and burn incense before the Lord. Then we will see whom the Lord chooses as his Holy One. You Levites are the ones who have gone too far. Yeah. Then Moses spoke again to Korah. Now listen, you Levites. Does it seem insignificant to you that the God of Israel has chosen you from among all the community of Israel to be near him so you can serve in the Lord's tabernacle and stand before the people to minister to them? Right? Because the Levites were already raised to a unique position, right? They were allowed to enter the tabernacle. They were allowed to be the closest people who camp around the tabernacle. They were the direct underlings of Aaron. They were, well, that's what they were. They were the direct servants of Aaron and his priest. And now, so you have high priest and you have his sons. You have the high priest Aaron, and then you have the sons of Aaron, and then you have the Levite people. So in the hierarchy, and then I guess you have Moses above the high priest. So in the hierarchy of leadership, that's where we're going, right? But there's something about being close to a seat of power that makes you more power hungry. And that's what's happening here. Does it seem insignificant to you that the Lord has placed you here? Korah, he was already given this special ministry to you. Korah, he has already given this special ministry to you and your fellow Levites. You are now demanding the priesthood as well. The Lord is the one you and your followers are really revolting against. For who is Aaron that you are complaining about him? Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they replied, "We refuse to come to you. Isn't it enough that you brought us out of Egypt, a land flowing with milk and honey, to kill us here in the wilderness, and that you now treat us like your subjects? What's more, you haven't brought us into another land flowing with milk and honey. You haven't given us a new homeland with fields and vineyards, and you are trying to fool these men. Oh no, are you trying to fool these men? We will not come." It's clear that, because these are the sons of past, Eliab was one of the leaders of his tribe. He was one of the leaders who ended up giving an offering to anoint the tabernacle. So it being his sons who are inciting this rebellion, you can tell some years have passed. It's a generational switch. So maybe they weren't even around to witness the moment or to know the true history of what happened after the land of milk and honey that they were promised was scouted. So they're not fully aware of why they are still wandering in the wilderness. Mind you, this is 40 years of a wander that they've been set onto. So people would okay, you took us out of this land, you brought us to the wilderness. We camp here, we wander here, and you haven't given us a land that you promised. So are you trying to fool us? Okay. Then Moses said to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, so they refused to come. In Numbers 16:15, then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not accept their grain offerings. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, and I have never hurt a single one of them." And Moses said to Korah, "You and all your followers must come here tomorrow and present yourselves before the Lord. Aaron will also be here. You and each of your 250 followers must prepare an incense burner and put incense on it so that you can all present them before the Lord. Aaron will also bring his incense burner. So each of these men prepared an incense burner, lit the fire, and placed incense on it. Then they all stood at the entrance of the tabernacle, and Moses and Aaron, meanwhile, in the entrance of the tabernacle with Moses and Aaron. Meanwhile, Korah had stirred up the entire community against Moses and Aaron, and they all gathered at the tabernacle entrance. Then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community, and the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Get away from all these people so that I may instantly destroy them." And isn't that crazy? That's your plea. How can you put yourselves above us? The Lord is with all of us. How can you separate yourselves as holier and better than us? It's like, all right, you're making this plea. You're making this rebellion. Sure. Stand before the Lord and let him choose. Let him show you who he's with. And then the Lord shows up and he's like, I'm going to destroy y'all. Aaron, Moses, can you get away so there's some distance so I can wipe these people out in one blow? I will instantly destroy them. But Moses and Aaron fell down on the ground. These are the people that they rebelled against. Oh God, they pleaded, you are a God who gives breath to all creatures. Must you be angry with all the people when only this one man sins? So now they bow before the Lord and they ask for the forgiveness. They plead and pray for the forgiveness of their enemies. And the Lord said to Moses, then tell all the people to get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. So Moses got up and rushed over to the tents of Dathan and Abiram, followed by the elders of Israel. Quick, he told the people, get away from the tents of these wicked men and don't touch anything that belongs to them. If you do, you will be destroyed for their sins. So all the people stood back from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Then Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrance of their tents together with their wives and children and little ones. And Moses said, this is how you will know what the Lord has sent me to do This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things that I have done, for I have not done them on my own. If these men die a natural death, or if nothing unusual happens, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord does something entirely new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them and all their belongings, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have shown contempt for their Lord. He had hardly finished speaking the words when the ground suddenly split open beneath them. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed the men, along with their households and all their followers who were standing with them, and everything they owned. So they went down alive into the grave, along with all their belongings. The earth closed over them, and they all vanished from among the people of Israel. All the people around them fled when they heard their screams. The earth will swallow us too, they cried. Then fire blazed forth from the Lord and burned up the 250 men who were offering incense. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to pull all the incense burners from the fire, for they are holy. Also tell him to scatter the burning coals. Tell Eleazar. This is giving me Mother of Dragon vibes, because Elijah now has to go into the fire to pull out what is holy. Take the incense burners of these men who have sinned at the cost of their lives, and hammer the metal into a thin sheet to overlay the altar. Since these incense burners were used in the Lord's presence, they have become holy. Let them serve as a warning to all the people of Israel. So Eleazar, the priest, collected the 250 bronze incense burners that had been used by the men who died in the fire, and the bronze was hammered into a thin sheet to overlay the altar. This would warn the Israelites that no unauthorized person, and no one who is not a descendant of Aaron should ever enter the Lord's presence to burn incense. If anyone did, the same thing would happen to him as happened to Kohath and his followers. So the Lord's instructions to Moses were carried out. I'm a visual person, bruh. That's the first death that's not they died. The Lord split open the earth and swallowed them, so they fell to their grave alive. Not just them and all of their belongings, and the people who were holding on to them, the followers who stood behind them, were swallowed up. And then 250 people who decided to follow and participate in this rebellion were burned by the presence of the Lord. Number 1641. But the very next morning, the whole community of Israel began muttering again against Moses and Aaron, saying, "You have killed the Lord's people." As the community gathered to protest against Moses and Aaron, they turned toward the tabernacle and saw that the cloud had covered it, and the glorious presence of the Lord appeared. The very next day, Moses and Aaron came and stood in front of the tabernacle, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from all these people so that I can instantly destroy them." But Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground. And Moses said to Aaron, "Quick, take an incense burner and place burning coals on it from the altar. Lay incense on it and carry it out among the people to purify them and make them right with the Lord. The Lord's anger is blazing against them. The plague has already begun." Do you realize that one of the main characteristics of God is that he's slow to anger? These people have continuously, in this verse, incited his rage. I wish I was better at remembering verse numbers and chapter numbers, but there was a reading that went, "Rebel again and this will happen." You get it was like 5 ways to rebel, like 5 moments to rebel, and what will be the cost of your rebellion. So this is what, a rebellion number 3, right? Because there's the first one where they rebelled against going into the land of milk and honey. This is the second rebellion where, I'm going to look this up so that I have it tomorrow. This is the second rebellion. Korath was the second rebellion, and then this one would be the third one where like the people are whispering to about Moses and Aaron, saying that they killed the people, the Lord's people. But they're the ground split open. Like, how are you going to how are you gonna give that to a human? Like, Moses and Aaron, you think Moses and Aaron did that? Split open the ground to swallow up the rebellion leaders? So again, Moses and Aaron are pleading for their enemies, because even here, they're persecutors. Number 1647. Aaron did as Moses told him and ran out among the people. The plague had already begun to strike down the people, but Aaron burned the incense and purified the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague stopped. But 14,700 people died in the plague, in addition to those who had died in the affair involving Korah. Then, because the plague had stopped, Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tabernacle. That's a quick sweeping plague. It's like, for us it's plague. You don't go catch, die, whatever. But quick, go burn these incense. The Lord has already, his anger has already started raging. So it's sweeping through the people while the incense burners are sweeping through the people in like the opposite direction, right? And then all of this is happening. The Lord sweeping amongst the people. This plague is blowing through them. And then Aaron is coming through this side, like coming in from the left, trying to burn these incense to cover them. And I guess where they meet, then the incense cover these people, making them right with the Lord again. So the Lord's anger is subsiding, but who's lost is already lost. There's no recovery. Okay, on to Psalms. What did I say we're reading today? Psalms what? Psalms. What's today? I've lost track. I think we're in Psalms 43. It's either 43 or 44. Yeah, we're in 44. And almost like these people know what they're doing, because this is a psalm for the choir director. It's a psalm of the descendants of Korah. O God, we have heard it with our own ears. Our ancestors have told us of all you did in their day and days long ago. You drove out the pagan nations by your power and gave all the land to our ancestors. You crushed their enemies and set our ancestors free. They did not conquer the land with their swords. It was not their own strong arm that gave them victory. It was your right hand and strong arm, and the blinding light from your face that helped them, for you love them. You are my King and my God. You command victories for Israel. Only by your power can we push back our enemies. Only in your name can we trample our foes. I do not trust in my bow. I do not count on my sword to save me. You are the only one. You are the only one who gives us victory over our enemies. You disgrace those who hate us. O God, we give glory to you all day long and constantly praise your name. But now you have tossed us aside in dishonor. You no longer lead our armies to battle. You make us retreat from our enemies, and you allow those who hate us to plunder our land. You have butchered us like sheep and scattered us among the nations. You sold your precious people for a pittance, making nothing on the sale. You let our neighbors mock us. We are an object of scorn and derision of those around us. You have made us the butt of their jokes. They shake their heads at us in scorn. We can't escape the constant humiliation. Shame is written across our faces. All we hear are the taunts of our mockers. All we see are our vengeful enemies. All this has happened, though we have not forgotten you. We have not violated your covenant. Our hearts have not deserted you. We have not strayed from your path. Yet you have crushed us in the jackal's desert home. You have covered us with darkness and death. If we had forgotten the name of our God or spread our hands in prayer to foreign gods, God would surely have known it, for he knows the secrets of every heart. But for your sake, we are killed every day. We are being slaughtered like sheep. Wake up, O Lord. Why do you sleep? Get up. Do not reject us forever. Why do you look the other way? Why do you ignore our suffering and oppression? We collapse in the dust, lying face down in the dirt. Rise up. Help us. Ransom us because of your unfailing love. Now, those are some descendants with some like, whoo, spirit-filled juju. These are descendants of Korah. So even in the verses where they're like, oh, but now you have tossed us aside in dishonor. You no longer lead our enemies, and you no longer lead our armies to battle. They're facing the people talk about generational curses, and they're like, oh, we gotta break generational curses, blah 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 blah. We gotta break generational curses. But I feel like we scratched the surface of understanding what a generational curse is. Like, it's usually a mental, psychological battle that is talked about in terms of like, oh, we gotta break our curses. But like, what about the spiritual side? Have y'all thought about that? Because I know I haven't. And not until recently have I considered, am I fighting against the spiritual curses brought to me? Inherited. You ever think about the spiritual juju you've inherited? I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it, but Lord, if you think I am ready, if you know me to be ready, then allow my understanding to expand. I'm scared. I'm scared, but I know you're by my side, Lord. So if you know me, to be ready. There's nothing else I can say because you know me better than I know me, so. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. I'm gonna go now, lovelies. Have a good night's sleep. Bye-bye.